Right, good morning everybody. I'm at the Oakville Success Centre having my handover briefing with Desmond, and we're really grateful that Beth has joined us. Beth you've met before. She's the Director of NOIT Research, and she's going to tell you all about the NOIT because I know there's such a great bit of interest out there. So I'm going to hand over to Beth and let her share her knowledge and passion for the NOIT. Hi Beth.
Hi Kim, thank you so much for having me here this morning. I know you've wanted to get the word out about the NOIT while you've been here, and I'm so glad that we found this time to sit down and talk about it. So there's kind of two places I want to go with this little interview. The first is to explain the logic and reasoning behind the NOIT and what it's doing. And the second is to give you some insight into how this assistive technology was developed and where we are in the process and just how excited we are to share this information with everyone. So thank you so much. So first of all, I think we can all agree that something has occurred with individuals with autism where they haven't developed normally, and so something is just different. And if we look at the work of Jean Piaget, who has the theory of cognitive development, what we see is that a typical child needs to go through a phase of development called the sensory motor phase between the ages of 0 and 24 months. And during that time, they're using their senses and their bodies to explore their environment and themselves and gain a clear understanding of who they are and what the things are around them and how the world is beginning to look to them and how it works. But what happens with autism, for whatever reason, is that phase doesn't complete or it gets stalled. So if we look at kids like Callum, we can see that they are very much in that stage of trying to figure out their world and exploring their environment. The difference between them and others is that because of their autism, their senses aren't working in harmony. So they're getting misperceptions of their environment and can't make sense of it. So the world is very chaotic and overwhelming for them, and that's why we see the behaviors and the stims and the coping strategies that we see and the lack of interaction with the environment. So the purpose of the NOIT is very simple. It is to bring the individual's awareness to one place in space, above and behind their head, every 8 seconds. And when we are doing that, we're removing the chaos from the environment for their sense of hearing. And once we've removed it for one sense, the other senses have a kind of a foundation, a parking spot, if you will, to get together and begin to work simultaneously so that the world is not so chaotic. And that is, we know from Callum that it's doing that for sure. And it's really just an attempt to restart the developmental process that for some reason failed. And that's the simplicity and the beauty of it. We're not trying to do anything weird. We're just restarting the natural developmental process using the senses that they would have been using in that sensory motor developmental phase anyway. Do you have any questions about that, Kim? Is there anything further I should say about that?
No, I think you've covered pretty much everything, especially in terms of Callum, because we've seen how once the NOIT was attached, he became very aware of the world around him. He began to take it in and then started to work through the developmental milestones on day one. And we know we were in the developmental milestones because the terrible twos hit us like a brick. So it showed to me that he was beginning to be orientated, and I'm just astounded at the speed in which Callum is working through these milestones.
He really is, yeah.
And I think we need to mention Des, because we were just talking before we interviewed, or started our interview, that the person that is working with the individual wearing the NOIT is critical, and we've shown the impact of Des's energy and ways and methods with the NOIT have been tremendous. So,
Yeah, and the NOIT was created to allow individuals that we couldn't reach before to take part in the Davis autism approach.
Yes.
And because we had other ways to orient people that were verbal or had good receptive language, and so they could take part in the whole program without any difficulty. And we had auditory orientation available on headsets before the NOIT was even created. But what happened with the subset of kids that are nonverbal is they wouldn't wear headsets for 10 or 12 hours a day, because that's just not in the repertoire of skills.
No.
So that's why Ron developed the technology of the Noit, so that it could be a device that was worn instead of something that we had to keep putting on their ears or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we've got evidence that all the therapies and programs that we've been to in the past haven't worked because Callum's not been orientated, so they were never going to work. So now I believe we found the right technology to help orientate his brain, and then by default found the right method through the Davis autism approach as well. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And
Yeah.
we do have professionals that are doing Davis, using the Noit with their clients. So we have people, I've got a music teacher that has a nonverbal little boy that she works with, and she told the mom, make sure he has his Noit on. So she notices a difference between when he has his Noit and doesn't have his Noit.
Yeah.
We've had teachers ask us to please get more supplies for one of their students because the mother was out of town and the teacher wanted the Noit on in the classroom. So we've had a lot of other professionals that have seen the difference that the Noit makes as far as giving a foundational focus and attention, which is useful in any situation.
It is brilliant. So I know there's an awful lot of interest out there in terms of the nitty-gritty of how the Noit works. And I know you're the lady to explain this because I've tried, but I think you need to hand over to you. And I know you've got a selection
I've got
of
a
Noits.
selection of things, yes. So first of all, the person to explain this really properly is Ron Davis, but he's not here, so he's sitting at home in Burlingame waiting to watch this video, so I hope I do it justice also.
You will.
So what the Noit is comprised of is two pieces. The actual Noit unit, which contains the volume buttons, the charger, the lithium batteries in here, the motherboard's in here, and the motherboard is programmed with the ting sound and other various pieces. And then we also have currently we're using an adapter, which has a connector so that it can be connected to the Noit. So the Noit sends the information or the signal to the piezos, and then the piezos, which are hidden under here, and I can actually show you because I have one that's open. These piezos are the thing that sends the frequency and makes the sound occur. So these two pieces are necessary to have the Noit work. The other thing is that the adapter is what we use to stick the Noit to the back of the person. Yeah. And it has a gel on it, and the gel can be removed and replaced when it gets used up or full of lint or whatever. We can also rehydrate them and reuse them. But yeah, we have those and they're replaceable. Now currently, this isn't the most recent adapter. We now have a cloth-backed adapter that is a little more flexible so that as the person wearing it is moving, it doesn't get caught on their shirt and that kind of thing. It makes it easier to just stay on for ease of maneuverability. But that's where we are now. But we didn't start with this. This, believe it or not, is one of the very first Noits made, and it still works. And so it still has two pieces. It had the motherboard, and you can actually see the little dots where the motherboard is in there. It still has the battery is under there, and it's covered in, it looks like tar. It's not really tar. It's some kind of a special protective plastic. And in our field trials, we actually asked parents to stick this thing on their kid, and they did. And that time we had this set of wires that parents had to disconnect and reconnect to change the gel pad. And at that time it was Velcroed on. And then this sticky pad, this is still really sticky, that's amazing. This sticky pad was stuck to the child, and when it wore out, they had to disconnect the wires and put on a fresh pad. So it was really interesting, and with that very beginning in 2011, this is what we started with. And it's amazing from this to where we've come to now. And then for a little while, we were using, these are gel pads that are made by, I think, Axelgard, and they were originally used for TENS units for people that are experiencing pain. And Ron just repurposed them by adding the piezos and the wires, and that's when we began to get the connector involved, so we didn't have to use the Velcro. And so the connector became part of it, and we have a Noit. So, and with that, that again, we had to just take these whole gels off and throw them away with the piezos and everything. So then we moved on to the adapter because we didn't want to be throwing away those piezos all the time. So with the adapter, the only part that needs to be changed is the gel itself. So instead of throwing away all these pieces, they are embedded inside the adapter and just stay there, and the gel is all that's changed.
It's
so
really easy as a mum,
Yeah,
making
exactly.
sure it's just a doddle to manage. You get into a little routine of charging your Noit up overnight,
Yeah.
You know, looking after the gel pad, and then getting him back on his shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Or his
Yes,
back
it's just so much easier than this.
Yes.
And the parents were very happy to do this.
Oh, yeah.
But it was, you know, a lot more work with the little wires and and the gels, or sorry, the battery is designed to last 12 to 14 hours or more. So typically a family has one of these, and they just charge it every night, and then they will have one of the adapters, and then they have a supply of extra gels, and that's typically what happens.
We now have our next guest speaker, and you've met her before, and it's Dr. Cathy, who is Desmond's mum, and Dr. Cathy is going to share with us the potential next steps for Callum when we return in August. And remember, we don't really know where we'll be in August because there is no agenda, there is no expectation. We very much follow Callum's lead. But I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Cathy, who is the director of Oakville's Success Centre, but she will give far more insight than I can ever give to you. So, Dr. Cathy, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here with you.
So, could you explain to me what we might move on to with Callum? And I know you're going to go beyond where we will get to Callum in August, but to give people that bigger picture for the Davis autism approach.
Right, I'd be happy to. I guess first of all to just comment on what you said about there is no agenda, and that's true in one sense, that we really do follow the client's lead, but we do have a very clear agenda in our own minds of where we're going and what the sequence of steps is. We just follow when and as the client is ready for that next step, which is one of the confounding things about the Davis autism approach, because people always want to ask, how long will it take? And our answer is always, I don't know. It takes as long as it takes. And that's because some individuals, and it really doesn't seem to matter what the age is, it can be from 7 to 87. Some are able to move very quickly through the program, and others simply take a long, long time. And it doesn't have anything to do with how intelligent they are, or it just takes as long as it takes. So, having said that, the next step for Callum, when he's ready to follow instructions, follow directions, is to get him working with the clay. And we always work with clay in all the Davis programs. And the reason we work with clay is because it works. And I know around Davis and others have tried different materials, and we keep coming back to clay. It just really works. There's something visceral about working with the clay that requires the total body experience. The clients have to be creative to think about what they're going to make and then make it. So it really is their own creation, and it's that creativity that's an essential piece of the learning. In everything we do with clients, they always have a model of themselves somewhere in the scenario. So you can see here that I'm working with a little boy this week doing an autism approach program, and there's always a model of self. And what that does is it makes sure that as an individual is learning the concepts that we're facilitating them to learn, it doesn't get into them as some abstract thing that happens to other people or is important to other people. They see that that's me right there doing something, and that's essential. So when Callum is ready for that, he will be actually making a clay model to show the idea of change, something becoming something else. And he will be making a model of himself and pointing it, saying, you are me, or you are Callum, whatever word he uses. And then we have them actually write the words in clay. With young children like Callum, what we sometimes do is just make all the letters for them, or they even have the words on cards. So it's really not about reading at this point. It's just we want them to see what the word looks like, hear the word, and have a clay model to represent the idea. And once he's done that and knows the three parts of himself, because that's what we start with, the model itself, you represent me, and then we talk about the three parts of a human, the body, which is the physical form, and make sure, so for Callum it would be to make sure he's in touch, and when you say, where's your knee, he can point to his knee, where's your nose, and so on, and play lots of games, just like you do with a toddler that's just learning those things, and you say, where's mommy's nose, where's your mouth, and just making sure he's aware of his whole body. And then we talk about mind, the thought process, what happens inside our minds, and life force, what gives us energy, what makes us want to be who and what we are. And then we move on to the concepts that make up the whole autism approach program. In Stepping Stones, which is the one Callum will be working on, it's different from the whole autism approach, because we start with just a few concepts of self and then another. So we have them make a model of another person and identify that as another. And as they're going through these concepts with clay, of course, we do lots of exploring the environment. I call them walkabouts, where we literally take the clients outside, and you've certainly seen lots of Des having experiences with Callum.
Yes.
We do that with all of our clients and take them out and just increasingly draw their awareness to the world around them, because that's what we're doing. We're bringing them out of their own inner world into the real world with accurate perception, so they really become aware of the world around them.
Yeah. And they put into practice what you're teaching them, aren't they?
Yes. A sweet story I have, I was working with a 10-year-old one day, and she came into my office one morning and she said, "Dr. Cathy, you are everywhere." And I said, "I am?" And she said, "Yes, everywhere. Everywhere I go, you are everywhere." And I was having trouble understanding. Yeah. And finally I understood what she said, and I said, "Oh, you mean everywhere you go, you are seeing the concepts. You are seeing change and cause and effect and consequence and sequence. Yes, everywhere. Everywhere I go."
Oh, how amazing.
And she was so happy that I understood what she was communicating, and I was happy because, wow, she's really seeing it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about, is helping the clients move from their own inner space into the real world and engaging with the world. And that's what participating fully is all about. It's engaging with the world.
Yeah, you truly do unlock the individuals, and
yes.
They feel empowered and special. What I love, I know in our first conversation I said to you, I don't want Callum to lose his uniqueness. I just wanted him to be, brave, to embrace that and celebrate that, but be able to participate also fully in this world.
Yes.
And you definitely understood that when I told you, so, and I can see it happening to him.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's really why we take the client's lead and move at their pace, and all the examples, we have them think of lots of examples from their own experience, because we're not trying to lay anything on them, we're just trying to awaken them to experience the world fully.
Yeah, no, and they feel safe and brave to do it, don't they, through the work you do. Oh, Dr.
And I think that's key to Davis' work, is that the clients feel safe. So we never try to force or push force. We just gently pull them along at their own pace and make sure they feel safe. Not all parents get that. If it seems to be going slowly, they get frustrated. It looks like we're not working. But we know that when the client just needs sometimes a full hour of just fiddling with clay or whatever they do, that's because the client needs that time to just process what we've been doing. And so what we do is from time to time say, are you ready yet? And when they're ready, they say yes and they come back. And if they say not yet, we say, okay, I'll be here.
Yeah.
And it just gives them that feeling of safety, and that allows us, interestingly, to make much more rapid progress.
Yeah.
Because when they do come, they're fully ready to learn and participate.
I think we've seen that with Callum, haven't we, as well?
Yes.
It's been amazing. Well, I'm going to just interrupt for a moment and say a huge thank you to Dr. Cathy, and she's inspired me to go back home and see what I can do for the other youngsters that I work with. But first and foremost, I'm looking forward to coming back in August